Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history.
I'm with Jwalani Tulongwepe, Figile Lingwati, and Tabiso Luhoko. Coming up in this hour.
This comes after the Minister of Home Affairs rejected an application by Motoso in terms of Section 87 of the Immigration Act that sought to overturn an earlier decision of the department to declare Motoso as a prohibited person.
Timothy Omotoso, the Nigerian televangelist, has left South Africa after he voluntarily opted to be officially deported.
There's a whole range of exhibits. We've got technology such as aircraft, tanks, vehicles, guns. We have thematic displays.
And citizens encouraged to visit museums as the world observed International Museum Day yesterday. But first up, the news with Jwalani Tulongwepe and our sports headlines with Figile Lingwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to arrive in the United States of America later today. Ramaphosa is on a state visit to meet his counterpart Donald Trump. Top on the agenda is the strained relations between the two countries after the U.S. President signed an executive order offering South African white farmers refugee on allegations that they are under attack. Sharon Bryce Pease has the story.
If the meeting is televised, then it's a no-brainer. It'd be hard not to watch. After all, this is a strained relationship with differences that have tested the partnership in recent months. And how the two heads of state managed that in front of a room full of senior aides and journalists lobbing questions on all topics could make for an interesting fly-on-the-wall scenario. It's live reality TV, and the stage is the Oval Office. When to pivot, maybe a frown, a smile, even a nod. Ask Zelensky, Carney, Maloney would have some thoughts. It's a show with expectations of a performance. President Ramaphosa has his constituency, President Trump his. They'll both be expecting a win.
A BBC investigation has found evidence of children as young as 15 being sexually abused after being trafficked into illegal mines across South Africa. There are testimonies from former illegal miners, researchers and charities that gangs are luring children from neighbouring countries. Gugu Klaba from Save the Children spoke to some of the victims.
They start by grooming them. They start by acting like they like them. And then, obviously, the adult will do it today. And because they showed you as a child that they like you, they would want to do it again the next day and the other day.
Legal expert Ulrich Leroux says South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority's delay in finalising the appeal against the Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso will create a barrage of legal challenges for them. Omotoso has officially left South Africa to Lagos after he voluntarily opted to be deported following his rearrest on the 10th of May by immigration authorities in East London in the Eastern Cape province. Omotoso was arrested in 2017 and faced a near decade-long trial on charges of rape, racketeering and human trafficking. He was acquitted on all 32 charges on the 2nd of April and released from prison. LaRue says it will not be easy for the NPA to get him extradited back to South Africa should they wish to retrial him.
And this now obviously poses problems for the NPA. They've indicated that they're going to appeal his acquittal and they want to bring that before the Supreme Court of Appeal. They have, unfortunately for them, not filed any papers as yet. So there's nothing that would have prevented Omotoso to either leave the country voluntarily or to be deported voluntarily. The effect that now has on the NPA, if they do want to prosecute this appeal, they would have to extradite him from Nigeria back to South Africa in order to do that, which is obviously going to create numerous problems for them as well.
At least 10 people have been killed after a suicide bomber targeted a queue of young recruits registering at the Damanyao military base in the Somali capital Mogadishu. Witnesses say teenagers were lining up at the base's gate yesterday when the attacker detonated their explosives. Medical staff at the military hospital told Reuters that they had received 30 injured people from the blast and that 6 of them had died immediately. Militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for that attack. And finally, the Liberal pro-EU mayor of Bucharest, Nicu Dan, has won Romania's presidential election after months of political turbulence. Dan had a strong challenge from the nationalist candidate, George Simion, who won in a dramatic first-round victory earlier this month. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford has more.
The far-right candidate, George Simion, had won the first round of the elections here pretty emphatically. And, of course, he was basically a stand-in for an even further right-wing politician who had run back in November, and then those elections were cancelled, you'll remember, because of allegations of Russian interference. So he was expected to poll extremely well yesterday too, and the vote did seem to be extremely close, but in actual fact, when the results actually came in, it was a fairly emphatic win for Nicu Dan.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Banyana coach wants to leave no stone unturned in their final preparations for the WAFCON title defense. And John Ram plans to quickly move past his painful collapse of losing the PGA Championship. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Joalani Tulongwebe with our news and Figle Lingwati with the headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126 #Africa Update and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today we'd like you to share your views with myself, Lulu Gaboo, and give us your comments on the thoughts or the ideas of service delivery protests. Do they lead to meaningful change in your country or do they result in further instability? Let us know your thoughts. That's on +2763 406 9126. WhatsApp us your text or voice note and we will be able to play them live on air. It is 12:08 Central African Time.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Now, Nigeria is struggling to deal with the challenge of insurgents. The area most affected is Borno State, and military operations to counter this are usually conducted at intervals in the areas most affected. Now, Tassim Akende reports on news making headlines in Nigeria.
Bola Tinubu's departure of the country for Rome following an invitation by the new Pope and global leader of the Catholic Church, Robert Prevost, for his inauguration at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. The Pope says Nigeria is dear to him, having worked in Lagos, southwest of the country in the 1980s. Presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga in a statement says the president will return to Abuja on Tuesday. Next is the alarm by Governor of Borno State, the epicenter of an insurgency here in Nigeria, over what he describes as the resurgence of insurgent groups around the Sambisa forest and the Mandara Hills in his state. He says military operations are usually conducted at intervals in the area, after which the troops disengage, giving terrorists an opportunity to regroup and form strongholds in territories once gained from them. The governor, Babagana Zulum, says the operation should be a continuous exercise, adding that more manpower and military tanks are also needed for successful operations in the area. The country's defense minister, Muhammad Badaru Abubakar, has assured that the governor's request will be granted. There is a call by state governors for the parliament to expedite action on the creation of state police. The National Assembly has since last year been debating on the bill for its creation. At a recent meeting, the governor said the State Police Department will complement the efforts of National Police towards addressing security challenges in the country. The call by the governors follows renewed killings and abductions, especially in farming communities, following the return of the rainy season a few weeks ago. In March, over 100 people were killed in the farming states of Plateau and Benue, mostly farmers raising concerns about cultivation of food crops in the areas. Expectations are high on members of the parliament to take legislative action on the matter.
And that report by Tesem Akende. It is 10 after 12 Central African time. Timothy Omotoso, the Nigerian televangelist, has left South Africa after he voluntarily opted to be officially deported following his rearrest in East London on the 10th of May by the immigration authorities. Omotoso was arrested in 2017 and faced a near decade-long trial on charges of rape, racketeering and human trafficking. He was, however, acquitted on all 32 charges on the 2nd of April and released from prison this year. Sasha Naidu has more.
Dressed in a grey hooded jacket, black track pants and sporting sunglasses, Omotoso boarded a 3:10 flight to Lagos. Omotoso arrived at the OR Tambo International Airport just after midday on a flight from King Shaka in Durban. He was then escorted by police officers from the domestic arrivals to the International Departures Terminal, where he waited to board his flight home, as Home Affairs spokesperson Sia Koza elaborates.
The Department of Home Affairs has declared Omotoso an undesirable person after he left the country. The Department of Omotoso notes the departure of Timothy Omotoso from South Africa to Nigeria from OR Tambo International Airport this afternoon. This comes after the Minister of Home Affairs rejected an application by Omotoso in terms of Section 87 of the Immigration Act that sought to overturn an earlier decision of the department to declare Omotoso as a prohibited person. The minister's decision meant that Omotoso was illegally in the Republic of South Africa. Upon his departure, Omotoso was still a prohibited person, and given that he was legal in the country, he was issued with a notification of an undesirable person.
Home Affairs Head of Immigration and Law Enforcement Stephen Fanil says Omotoso will not be allowed back into South Africa for the next 5 years.
The systems that we use picked up that he's already been delisted, meaning that he's not allowed to come into the country. He had a new passport issued by the Nigerian embassy in the last few weeks, and it's on that passport that he left the country. But what we can further confirm is that we have further just informed him that he should no longer come back. He's a prohibited person in terms of the Immigration Act. What it simply means is that he will not be allowed entry. He is listed under two categories, meaning the first one is that he had a fraudulent permit before, and then he's also overstayed for an extensive time. So therefore, Mr. Omotoso cannot come back for the next 5 years to South Africa.
Sasha Naidu, Johannesburg.
Nigeria will not reach its full potential as long as everyone focuses on exploiting the country and its people for personal gain. These are the words of a Nigerian lawyer, Frank Tieti, who now joins us on the line. Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and always my pleasure.
Now, Frank, why do you feel it was necessary to view this opinion?
Oh, well, our country is going down and things are getting worse. And it's a downward spiral from the time we gained independence in 1960. And we've had the worst of times because of bad leadership. And our country is seen as as if it's meant for the plunder of political players and persons who think that the Nigerian project is meant to serve their interest alone. And it's not restricted only to Nigerians, but to the entire world who see Nigeria as its resources that are meant only for exploitation. So who cares about the people? Who cares about using the resources of the country for the benefit of the people and for the future of the Nigerian children? It seems as if our leaders don't care. And all they care about is how to capture power, how to win elections by hook or crook. So looking at the future of this country, it becomes very disturbing to think that this country is on its knees today. Our Nigerian armed forces can't fight the insurgents anymore. Boko Haram is on the rise. Insecurity is creating a state of uncertainty in business and in life in general. So, and again, Nigerians, unfortunately, are being pretentious about it, going about their lives normally, but secretly bearing in their mind a whole lot of fear and uncertainty.
Now, Frank, what proposals do you have that can be put in place to change people's perceptions?
First, let us have a national ethos that wants to build a country like other countries have done. You can't build a country by exploiting it. You can only build it with some measure of sacrifice, with commitment, with people joining the army, not because they don't have anything to do, not because they don't have any other job, but simply because they want some pay. And if the situation gets difficult, they run away in the midst of difficulty and attacks by Boko Haram. People shouldn't get into government because they want to plunder resources. They should get into government because they want to serve. What the solution is simple. Let us have a leadership that can rally around Nigerians, that can galvanize the population through nation building. We are not building this country. We are tearing it apart, and it seems as if we don't care because we believe that the Nigerian project is for the gain, and if it doesn't work, we all go back to our tribal cocoons. But we must realize that that's not how the countries that many Nigerians are running to today in the name of Japa syndrome, what they are running to today, those countries were not built by plundering. They were built by sacrificial leadership, by commitment, by application, of knowledge and technology, and through patriotism. But what we have with corruption on the rise, with state capture, with the judiciary that is no longer functional, there is no trust in the electoral system, and what we have is a state of disillusionment that is being hidden with all sort of PRO messages. We can't continue like this. So there has to be a national rebirth, either by starting with a constitution that gives power to the people so that the people can determine their destinies, and not this concentration of power in Abuja that doesn't serve the interests of the people. The entire country of over 200 million people being policed from the cities, from the country center, that's ineffective. Governors are elected, given political power, but they are unable to organize security to protect the people that put them into power. That's a problem. Our country needs to be sincere that it wants to be a country in the Committee of Nations, that it can boast it takes care of its own people. Well, as we see, there is a serious disparity between the resources, the natural resources we have, the human resources we have, and the state of affairs in our country that is on its knees because of insecurity, that is so badly governed, that is so poor. The Nigerians at the time, was referred to as the poverty capital of the world. It shouldn't be. With our oil resources, you see, the Human Development Index is an abysmal state. So we need to ask ourselves, if you ask me for a solution, the solution is in us. We need to wake up and say that we want to build our country, our own country. Nigerians don't have a habit of obeying laws. We are in the rat race. competing with one another to disobey the laws in clamor and for plunder, for corruption, for doing the wrong things. There is need for a national reorientation that galvanizes the people into building a country that we can proudly say is the giant of Africa. Right now, we are an embarrassment, a huge embarrassment to Africa, and I hate to say it because I'm so proud of this country. Because when I grew up in this country, born in the 70s, in the 80s, we thought that we were the hope of the black race in the entire world. But today, we are a big shame and an embarrassment indeed.
What sort of reaction have you received for your comments and your thought process and your proposal so far?
And that's the very dangerous thing when people just agree with you and then they move on. Yes, I've seen a lot of commendations saying, yes, you're stating the obvious. So if you're stating the obvious, what next? It's not enough for us to simply now begin to, assuage ourselves with the fact that, we hear these words, these are words of hope, but no decision, no resolution to say, let us do something. And I understand the difficulty. The difficulty is that we lack leadership. I can say that at the time we once had leadership. We missed the opportunity. Maybe under the military, which could have been a situation, an opportunity for us to truly, have what I call, a sort of opportunity to build the country afresh after the Civil War. But all of those opportunities were missed. Imagine the June 12, 1993 elections, which would have ushered in democracy so smoothly. But it was annulled by the military. And since then, the state of our political life has been in a topsy-turvy situation. And I think that we must first of all come to ourselves. As it is, Nigeria is a plunder zone and it's a problem for our future.
Well, Frank, on a different matter, Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso left South Africa to return home to Nigeria last night after years of facing charges of rape and human trafficking, of which he was ultimately acquitted. What is the legal fraternity saying in Nigeria about this case?
Well, if that matter had been in Nigeria, probably it wouldn't have taken that long. And the man may not have been charged to court, because if he had excised a lot of connections in Nigeria, you either get prosecuted or not prosecuted, depending on how connected you are to the forces, to the powers that run the day. So we looked at the issues closely. We are considering, given the reports that we hear, that there seem to be a lot more compromises. It's important that some of these persons, if they were in Nigeria, they would have operated above the law. But it's quite interesting that he indeed faced trial. But to think that the same problem of corruption that is associated with prosecutorial discretion has also been identified in this case, in the sense that the judge was so express in saying that the prosecution bungled this case. I mean, it was simply stopped short of saying what normally happens here when you are able to compromise the prosecution as an offender, as an alleged offender, and then the entire case is lost. I think it's a good thing that he's leaving South Africa now to Nigeria. Unfortunately, I thought that the appellate process would actually be activated while he's still in South Africa. His coming to Nigeria will probably be the end of the entire matter, because I doubt if ever any form of extradition would happen.
So speaking of extradition, now with the appeals process coming into play, the NPA is insisting that they are going to appeal. And what sort of steps need to be taken for him to be extradited back to South Africa? And how long of a process will this take, more than likely?
I can assure you that it's quite an uncertain process. You will have to, approach the courts here, and the man will activate every remedy that is available to him under the fundamental human rights, protection mechanism in Nigeria. So the extradition processes are usually not easy, even for drug offenders, known drug offenders, for them to be extradited to a country that is so influential like the United States hasn't been very easy to obtain in Nigeria. So I can say that it's not something that will be very easy. It's not also something that will take that will be quick. We're looking at number of years, say a minimum, an average of 4 years for the extradition process to be concluded. However, if there is enough political will on the part of the Nigerian authorities, particularly on the part of the Attorney General of the Federation of Nigeria, the process might be expedited indeed, but I very much doubt, because if you have money like Timothy Omotosho does have, and influence in as a spiritual leader, it will be very difficult to extradite him from Nigeria.
Now, Frank, just in wrapping up very quickly, Omotoso's wife is still in South Africa and is also now under investigation into whether she is in South Africa legally. What is your view on this? Are we likely to see her also leaving and following her husband if her documentation obviously isn't up to date and up to scratch?
I think that's most likely to happen. And again, I think it's safer for them, so to speak, if they leave South Africa and come to Nigeria, where there's a much liberal criminal justice system, unlike where they will have in South Africa, where the investigation might be much more thorough, especially in the wake of the public outrage that has greeted the acquittal. So if those papers, apart from whatever the papers are, it will be safer for Motosho and his wife, I would say, to come back to Nigeria. And
Frank, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Cheers.
That's a Nigerian lawyer, Frank Tiete, joining us on the line. It is 25 after 12 Central African time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African time.
And one person has died and another injured during protests in Deep Kloof in the Soweto township in the Gauteng province of South Africa. Now, protests erupted early this morning over sanitation issues. There were also reports of a looting of a truck in the area. And for more, we are joined on the line by the councillor in that area. That's Sthembiso Mashinini. Sthembiso, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Now, Sthembiso, we watched this unfolding in the early hours of the morning up until not so long ago. What's the latest taking place in Deep Kloof currently? And please confirm the number of persons who have lost their lives. And we know that one person was injured.
Okay, two people that have died. That's one lady that is injured at hospital. One was hit by a car in the freeway when they were trying to loot a truck. Then the other one, when a truck was trying to run away from the scene when people were coming in to loot, it hit that person who was in the pavement. The person died on the spot.
Now, so the truck being looted and torched, is this the work of the community?
It's not the community that does it. It's the criminals who does it, who disguise in the community. Because I don't think the community just wants to loot. Because I even think I'm hearing that you're reporting it as a sanitation problem. It's not a sanitation problem. There's an alleged land that has been transferred to a private company where the city was supposed to be building units. That is the point of contention. It's trying to be an entity that is stopping the city from building. So I'm sure that is saying the people who are protesting are protesting about the sanitation, while Johannesburg Water has been working on there just to get the people to have the flushing toilets that they promised them. They've been working there. It's been a long time. But if you are in hostel, you'll see that there are those people who are busy working there.
And have you managed to engage with the city or, the people in power in government with regards to the crisis that is now unfolding? And have they confirmed that the land has been sold off to whether an individual or a company?
Because I was in a meeting with the MMC. I'm still going to a meeting at 1 o'clock with the MMC to discuss the matter and finding a solution. The MMC will be going to Diepkloof Hostel after that meeting, so to address the matters. Because I think the people there know that the MMC is always coming there. He's not one person who I know is not afraid. I was at the MMC of Human Settlement and the MMC of Economic Development. So from them, there is they're working on the matter. So we're having a challenge here that from what we have found out and picked up from this, there's a problem that the junior official signed off things that he was not supposed to sign. So the city will be addressing that matter. So I know that today, after the meeting, when the MMC releases a statement, you'll find out something different from that. But today, the MMC will be going to Diepkloof Hostel.
Now, earlier on, there was talk of the fact that the protest action is suspended for now until after this meeting that you are currently in or going to be going into. What are the people really calling for? There were reports, and we've seen before, where the mayor at the time, who was Gwamanda, had gone to the area and made promises, and since those promises have been made, there was no delivery. Protest action, is this going to continue if you do not get your way?
No, I don't think so. It's also false that nothing that was delivered. But I think that outside there were other things that were delivered. Because when you before there were empty units. Those units have been, people have been allocated today. From what the mayor promised, most of the things that he promised have happened. So we're just waiting for certain things to happen again, because we were promised that the water will be coming, not the water, but the flushing toilets. Because you know that they're still using those toilets, those VIP or whatever. I can't even call those toilets VIP toilets, but they're still using those toilets. But the city was moving to getting them flushing toilets, because as a result, they did have those toilets before, but people chose to break the toilet and make units of living, because we know the issue of there, it's overcrowding. So they chose to build units on those toilets. So there is infrastructure for the sewage. It's just we are waiting for the city to build flushing toilets again that are going to affect everyone there positively.
All right, and just in wrapping up, Stembi, so the issue of the land, if the land has been sold off, what's the next plan of action?
I think the MMC will be addressing that matter, because for now I can say it's alleged. So, but the MMC will be clarifying. I think after the meeting with the MMC and the higher ranking officials, I'll be able to speak through. But if we call it at around about 3 o'clock, everything will be fine, because we'll be having the details of what has happened there. Because we were just waiting for senior officials. They said they were going to be available at 1 when we were at that meeting. So we were waiting for the 1 o'clock meeting. After that, we are going to Diepkloof Hostel again.
All right, Stembi, so thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
No, thanks for having me, ma'am.
That's Councillor in Diepkloof, Soweto, Stembiso Mashinini, joining us on the line. It is our news headlines time with Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to arrive in the United States today. Ramaphosa is on a state visit to meet his counterpart Donald Trump. South African Civil Rights Movement Not in My Name International has welcomed the deportation of Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotosho, saying it demonstrates the country's commitment to upholding the rule of law. And finally, the Liberal pro-EU mayor of Bucharest, Niki Dan, has won Romania's presidential election after months of political turbulence. Dan had a strong challenge from the nationalist candidate George Simeon, who won in a dramatic first-round victory earlier this month. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Jolani Tulongwepe with our news headlines, and we say good afternoon to Figlele Ngwati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Lulu. We kick off with football news this hour. Banyana coach Desiree Early says she wants to leave no stone unturned as they approach the final preparation phase of their Women's Africa Cup of Nations title defense. This was her sentiments after announcing a 24-player squad to host Botswana and Zambia in a 3-nation series, with Banyana fixtures scheduled for the 28th and the 31st of May. Ellis says the main aim is to get the blend of youth and experience right, while also testing the players' physicality among COSAFA's best.
We want to leave no stone unturned, and we want to make sure that we give players an opportunity, but we also want to make sure that we get the mix right. So getting the mix right now is not where we're at. It's still another test. I think 3 COSAFA teams going to AFCON. Botswana doing really well in the last one, getting to the quarters, Zambia getting to the semis and getting a bronze. So they've added a lot of value. They've evolved over the years. Zambia went to the successive Olympic Games. So
Ellis further shared what she expects from both Botswana and Zambia ahead of the crucial friendlies.
We know the transition that Zambia has with their quick players. We know that the new coach is trying to make them play. But we also know that there's frailties as well in their team, and we're hoping to exploit that. Botswana will bring the physicality, as the same with Zambia will bring the physicality, and that is sometimes stuff that we struggle with. So it's for us to be able to negate that, move the ball around quicker.
The Confederation of African Football, CAF, and the European Commission concluded a historic agreement which provides for the EC to partner with the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations and 2027 Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024 and CAF African Schools Football Championship. The agreement was signed by CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe and European Commissioner for International Partnerships, Mr. Joseph Sigela, in Cairo, Egypt, on the sidelines of the CAF AFCON Under-20 tournament. And now golf news. It is Scotty Scheffler. An emotional Scotty Scheffler held off the rejuvenated Jon Rahm to convert his 54-hole into a maiden USPGA Championship title. While the winning margin of 5 strokes suggests his third major was a formality, a different story threatened to unfold at Quail Hollow. Well, number 1, Scheffler began 3 shots ahead of 5 clear of Rahm, but it became a two-way duel for the Wanamaker Trophy. And this is what he had to say.
I mean, just a lot of happiness. I think, maybe thankful as well. I mean, it was a long week. I felt like this was as hard as I've battled for a tournament in my career. I mean, this was a pretty challenging week. I mean, the first 2 days I did not swing at my best. I was able to post a score somehow. And, outside of the last 5 holes yesterday, that's where I really kind of put myself ahead in the tournament. And, the back 9 today was pretty special as well. But yesterday, the way I finished off that round, I think it was really important for me to have a lead to play with today. And
for any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fire Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. What does Africa's future look like? And are we bold enough to shape it? Okay. Join Channel Africa and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation for the 15th Africa Day Lecture. Live from the iconic Julius Nyerere International Convention Center in Dar es Salaam on Saturday, 24th of May from 3 to 6 p.m. Central African Time. This year's theme, the state of the continent and reigniting the African Renaissance. Expect bold ideas, visionary leaders, and the spark to reignite Africa's future. Be part of the conversation only on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Find us on SABC Plus and on www.channelafrica.co.za.
Well, thank you to Fikile Ngwati with our sports update, and we say good afternoon to Nosipho Zuma with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. In your business news this hour, South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile has arrived in Paris. He has undertaken a working visit to France to cement bilateral relations with the European nation. The trip is also aimed at expanding cooperation projects as well as identifying new areas of cooperation with specific focus on trade and investment. Now, recently, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola co-chaired the 9th session of the Forum for Political Dialogue between France and South Africa. Kylie Khumalo has more.
Deputy President Mashatile is set to take part in the South Africa-France Investment Conference, where Pretoria will intensify cooperation in the fields of infrastructure development, science, technology and innovation, education and skills development. They also want to improve the already strong people-to-people links between the two countries and increase the flow of tourism to South Africa from France. France is the 14th largest investor in South Africa, with about 400 French companies investing in sectors such as financial services, renewable energy, rail, chemicals, oil and gas.
South Africa's biggest mobile operator, Vodacom, reported a marginal rise in annual earnings on a stronger second-half performance, but gains were capped by significant currency volatility. Vodacom, majority owned by UK-based Vodafone, said headline earnings per share rose by 1.3% to 857 South African cents in the year ended March 31st, from 846 South African cents a year earlier. CEO of Vodacom, Shamil Yasub, said given significant currency volatility, he was impressed with the strong finish the group produced in the last 6 months, supporting the confidence communicated in November last year that the organization is poised for a stronger second-half performance. The South African Post Office, SAPO, has signed an agreement with the Unemployment Insurance Fund, the UIF, for $21 million. The funds aim to safeguard almost 6,000 jobs and aid the Post Office revival through a strategic partnership. The Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Math, yesterday said the UIF, through the Temporary Employee Relief Scheme, TIES, will inject the funds into SAPO over a 6-month period. TIES coordinator at the UIF, Rachel Daukubo.
This is only for salaries, and we are saying that as we save the post office their payroll funds, the 381 million that they would have ordinarily paid to the employees will be used elsewhere in terms of their turnaround strategy that they have implemented. So the post office will on a monthly basis be measured on the implementation of that turnaround strategy as well, including the verification that the money is paid to the employees.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah says her working visit to Botswana and Zambia last week aimed to strengthen bilateral relations with the neighboring countries. She discussed a number of bilateral and regional matters with her counterparts and highlighted some benefits that the recently discovered oil and gas in her country would provide the entire region and Africa. President Ndaitwah also explored possible infrastructure projects and economic leakages through Namibian ports, including Walvis Bay.
We found it appropriate to ensure that all our neighbors who are not coastal towns, they are linked to the sea, hence making available the dry ports. And those dry ports are not for governments alone, but for the private sector.
And finally, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will meet European Union leaders in London today to announce deals aimed at resetting post-Brexit relations. The two sides are believed to have made a breakthrough yesterday evening on issues including fishing rights. The BBC's Rob Watson has the details.
And I think there's also going to be some progress made on essentially just trying to ease some of the frictions in the trade relationship between Britain and the European Union since Brexit. So whether that's the movement of people, of animals, of plants, whether it's people travelling for pleasure or for business, to just try and take some of the friction out of the relationship. The problem is that the European Union still takes the view, hey Britain, you voted to leave, you can't have as good a deal outside the club as you had inside, right?
Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,599 naira 70. In Botswana, it's 13 bula 40. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 58. And in Zambia, it's 26 kwacha 69. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 66. Russia is 80 rubles 84. India, it's 85 rupees 56. China, it's 7 yuan 20. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 8 18 rand 2 cents. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 89 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,246 and platinum at $993 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.91 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusi Pozuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Thank you to Nosipo Zuma with our business news. It is 12:43 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Tanzanian opposition leader Tundu Lissu has appeared in court in connection with the alleged publication of false information online and another related treason. There was a heavy police presence at the court with some security personnel wearing balaclavas. Joining us on the line is Brenda Rupia, a spokesperson of Chadema, who was at the court. Brenda, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Hi. It's very nice to hear from you.
Now, Brenda, did you manage to make contact with Tundu Lissu at all? And, how did the court appearance go today?
Yes, I was able to see him at court, and he looks strong. He looks really strong. He waved to his party people, and he did tell everyone else to be strong for him. And he said that he's reading a lot. So putting him in jail will not stop them from. This was actually a public announcement. Putting him in jail will not stop him from being the best that he can be, and he's gonna get out of there stronger than ever.
How did the court appearance go?
Well, the cases, both of them were adjourned for the 2nd of June, 2025. So we'll be going back to court on the 2nd of June, 2025.
And what is basically, just before we move on to my next question, I just want to find out from you that the cases that he is facing, the cases of treason and the alleged publication of false information online, did they by any chance go into the details of exactly what these cases entail?
No, the people that the government actually said they have 15 witnesses against that are going to go against Tundu Lissu, and they said they will bring them to court on the 2nd of June. They refused to disclose the 15 people's names today. So we also had Chadema also had eight witnesses, of which the people will be disclosed on the 2nd of June as well.
Now,
I don't know if I answered your question.
The same matter, but indirectly, where Martha Karua, who went to Tanzania in support of Lissu. Martha is a leading Kenyan lawyer and the country's former justice minister. What is your reaction and what is your take to her deportation from Tanzania because of her visit there and I guess in support of your opposition leader?
To be honest, it's been a continuation of the Samia Suluhu Hassan administration against the last time we did this interview. I said there's unfair treatment against any political leader who's in favor of the opposition. So that was a very unfair and it was a very unfair act towards the Martha Karua and the Kenyan leaders. And I don't know why Samia and her administration doesn't understand that they cannot hide this from the world. they keep exposing themselves by all these little unjust acts, and they don't understand that they're doing wrong.
And tell us about the support that Tundu Lissu and your party as an opposition party. Talk to us about the support that you are getting from the international community.
All right. Today we had the U.S. Embassy, and we also had the EU Embassy, and we had representatives from the East African community, and we also had representatives from the human rights community in Tanzania. But Tundu Lissu had 32 pool of lawyers with him, and he's also a lawyer, so he also is representing himself. But as well, we had our political leaders there to support him. So we had plenty of support, as well as the people of Tanzania, the citizens. A lot of people showed up to court today in support of Chairman Tundu Antipas Lissu.
And what about his family? How are they faring?
They're faring okay. Like I said, our chairman is very strong. And, when you see him, he also encourages you to be strong for him. When you see him, he's rejoicing, he's happy, he's telling everybody, I'm strong, don't worry, we're going to win this. Those are false accusations, which we know and the world knows. All these accusations are false. Tundu Lissu did not publish any false any false, what do you call it?
Any false information.
False information on YouTube, because they're saying he published it on YouTube. People don't publish, they don't write scripts on YouTube. If they say X, then maybe, but they're saying YouTube. So all those are false accusations, and he really they're putting him inside because of because of this agenda of no reforms, no election that Chadema is pushing. I think they're afraid of the elections.
And just in wrapping up, in terms of the conditions, I know we touched on the conditions of his arrest, where he is. Does his family have access to him? Do you have access to him currently?
Until last week, when I last visited him, only 2 people are allowed to visit him per day, which is not normal. So sometimes the family members have to wait until the weekend to see him, which is very unfair acts of the Samia Suluhu administration as well. These are just orders coming from up, down, and the police force, the jail forces as well are following orders. When you go to we are just following orders, so please comply.
All right. Well, Brenda, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update and giving us an update on exactly what's unfolding there in Tanzania. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
That's Brenda Rupia, spokesperson of Chadema, joining us on the line. It is 12:51 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Get Channel Africa on DTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Now, in an era of constant transformation, museums play a pivotal role in navigating a dynamic landscape shaped by global events and evolving societal needs. This is according to Marketing and Communications Manager of the Dizong Museums of South Africa, Lemogang Zingume, as International Museum Day was commemorated on the 18th of May. Some of the museums in South Africa's Gauteng province provided free entrance and hosted a number of activities for communities throughout this month in an effort to encourage citizens to visit museums. Sisi Sikhalo has more.
This museum was established during the Second World War as a memorial to South Africans who had fought and died during that war. It has since become a memorial to all South Africans who served their country and who died for their country. And we portray the military history of South Africans and South Africa.
And anybody wanting to come to the museum, what can they expect?
Well, there's a whole range of exhibits. We've got technology such as aircraft, tanks, vehicles, guns. That tells you about the technology of warfare. We have thematic displays. We have displays of uniforms, badges, medals, and such. Small arms collection and edged weapons. That's swords and knives, etc.
That was the director of the Dzong National Museum of Military History, Alan St. Clair, telling us about their museum, which is located in the city of Johannesburg. Even though almost everyone is embracing technology, nothing can take away the excitement of a site visit to a museum. Channel Africa caught up with two visitors at the museum, Simbai Vumburai from Zimbabwe and John Kane, originally from Cape Town, but now residing in Johannesburg. They share their experience.
It's been great learning a lot of the stuff that I wouldn't have known and probably wouldn't have had the interest just to find out by myself. But actually to see some of the planes, some of the tanks and some of the stuff that's on display has been really educational.
So Herman and I have come to visit here with three youngsters, two from South Africa, one from Zimbabwe, who would not remember much about the army or the stuff that happened, even the older wars that we would have attended or have known of because of our parents. So my age is 56. The youngsters range between early 20s and 30. And it's been quite a revelation for them, for us to be able to walk around and tell them about the planes, the weaponry that we were involved in the army in our days. It's an absolutely magnificent rendition. I'm amazed to see the museum in this condition.
Marketing and Communications Manager at the Dzong Museums of South Africa, Lemohan Singh Nube, says museums continue to be spaces of education. They enable people to appreciate various cultures. They further provide spaces for relaxation and entertainment. She elaborates further on this.
If you visit the Dzong National Museum of Natural History in Pretoria, you will come across one of our artifacts called Mrs. Place. This is a fossil skull that is believed to be a distant relative of humans. It was discovered by one of our curators, Dr. Robert Broom, in 1947. Now, this artifact gave important support to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which indicates how humans evolved from apes to what we have become today. So this research that was conducted in the museums has played an important role in understanding some of these theories. If you visit the Military History Museum today, you'll find the exhibition on women in the liberation struggle. And this exhibition teaches us about women like Krotoa Eva, Queen Nonesi of Abatembu, Olive Schreiner, and many other women. And when we reflect on their stories, we realize that women have always had wisdom and courage, even in the most difficult circumstances.
There will be numerous activities at their museums throughout this month. She takes us through some of the activities.
We'll be celebrating International Museum Day through exhibitions, public lectures, museum tours. Some of our museums will provide free entrance, and we have a few museums opening art exhibitions. For instance, in the Dzong National Museum of Cultural History opened an art exhibition in Pretoria. We also opened a Women in the Liberation Struggle exhibition at the Dzong National Museum of Military History in Johannesburg. Pretoria Art Museum has an exhibition on coral brick collection of ceramics. That's one of the activities happening there. And also at the Military History Museum in Johannesburg, we have a new exhibition on the role of Indians in the military.
Meanwhile, the Dzong National Museum of Military History is also home to the military veterans, such as the 32 Battalion and South Africa's liberation movements. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, it is 12:57 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. And we say good afternoon to Lulu Gaboo of the Upside team and find out what's happening. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How was the weekend?
Weekend was good, and yours?
It was a chilled weekend.
Okay.
I needed it.
right.
Rejuvenated, ready for the week ahead. So what's coming up today on the Upside, we get into conversation about gated communities versus standalone properties. Which one would you prefer? Do you want to live in a gated residential community or a standalone house?
Gated.
Gated?
Yeah.
Is it safer? You think it's
Safety
just
issues,
for safety?
yeah.
Okay.
Standalone safety issues, security.
Yeah. Okay. So we talk about that and why people choose gated communities versus standalone, especially nowadays when they're getting into the property market. And then we talk about side hustles. How do you go about getting that additional income stream without overworking yourself after your 9 to 5? You don't want to be overwhelmed at the end of the day, right? But having an additional income really does help in supplementing certain areas of your life. And so we find out how best you can do that. All that coming up, and a lot of banter between myself and Nompumelelo as always.
And that's the Upside coming up at the top of the hour with Lulu Gaboo and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Well, before I go, just continue sharing with us your thoughts on service delivery protest, whether these lead to meaningful change in your country or do they result in further instability. Share your views with us. Send us a WhatsApp text or voice note on +27 63 406 9126 and continue with us on our socials. For myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, that's our producer Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator Katu Madava, and social media Elaine Bengani. It's been a great Monday. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
SABC News.